Um, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and good evening, everyone. On behalf of the IIUM Moots and Client Consultation Club, I would like to warmly welcome all of you to our AAC Intro to Mooting workshop. We are truly grateful to have your presence tonight as we prepare for the upcoming ICOL Advocacy Competition 2025. This session is especially designed for our student coaches to equip and guide you with the right tools and strategies to effectively mentor your teams. Before we proceed further, let us begin our event with a dua recitation seeking Allah's blessings for tonight's session. I would like to invite Brother Afiq Mukri to lead the dua.
Mukri, on your mic.
Sorry. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin Ashrafil Mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Ya Allah, Ya Rahim, praise be to God, the Lord of the worlds. Peace and blessings be upon our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions, and for those who followed his example till the judgment day. Allahumma Ya Allah, on this blessed evening, in conjunction with the AAC Intro to Mooting workshop, beseech thee and grateful to you for all infinite blessings to us, your humble servants, so that we can live a safe and prosperous life. We seek your blessings for the flawless progress of this event from the beginning till the end. We seek your blessings to steer clear of anything that would be detrimental to the progress of this event. Ya Latif, Ya Rahman, please bless us with your tawfiq and hidayah. Please guide us tonight's participant to greatness, peace, glory, and prosperity in this world and the hereafter. Grant us valuable knowledge that will be beneficial in order to gain your mardatillah. Make us your righteous servants that follow your commands and refrain from sinful acts. Please forgive us for our wrongdoings. Ya Munzil al-Barakat, bestow peace and success upon tonight's participants. Preserve us from any threat and disaster. And to you, Ya Allah, And to you, Ya Allah, we ask for security and prosperity upon us, our leaders, and our society. Bestow patience in us to face challenges. Please accept our deeds and reward us accordingly. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanatan wa qina azabannar. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Amin.
Thank you, Brother Afiq Mukri. May Allah ease our affairs and grant us barakah in this program. It is our great honor tonight to welcome our speakers for the night, Brother Aiman Firdaus and Brother Iman Hakim. These two speakers are no stranger to the mooting scene. Their outstanding achievements as a mooter and coach include, as for Brother Iman Firdaus, he was nominated as the champion and best oralist in ICOL Advocacy Competition 2023, second runner-up and Spirit of Law Asia Award, Law Asia International Moot Competition 2024 in the national rounds, quarter finalist and Best Memorial Award, Law Asia International Moot Competition 2024 in the international rounds, champion and Best Oralist as Coach in ICOL Advocacy Competition 2024, second runner-up in Law Asia International Moot Competition 2025 in national rounds, and Philip C. Jessup International Law Moot Court Competition 2025. As for Brother Iman Hakim, he was nominated as the champion in ICOL Advocacy Competition 2023 and first runner-up in Penghujahan Mahkamah 2024. The first runner Semi-finalist in Law Asia International Moot Competition 2024, Philip C. Jessup International Law Moot Court Competition 2025, semi-finalist and Spirit of AAC Award as coach in ICOL Advocacy Competition 2024, second runner-up in Law Asia International Moot Competition in 2025 in the national round. With such an impressive record, we believe Brother Iman and Brother Aiman's insight will be invaluable in guiding our student coaches to become better mentors, strategists, and leaders. Without further ado, let us welcome Brother Aiman and Brother Iman to share their knowledge and experience with us. I pass the floor to the speaker.
Hello, Assalamualaikum everyone. Can you guys hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, Iman.
Yes.
So, everyone, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for coming and thank you to Master of Ceremony for introducing myself and my partner here, Aiman Firdaus. So now, for tonight, we are going to have a santai-santai punya workshop je, tak nak heavy sangat. So the title of our workshop today is going to be From the Problem to Rostrum. So why rostrum? Because later on when you are going to compete in AAC, there will be a rostrum and you are going to submit on that rostrum alone. So without further ado, let's just start. Next slide, please. Hello. Okay. So this is going to be our introduction. We are going to do some ice breaking, and I'm going to tell you guys what is mooting and what is not mooting. And then third, skills that you will gain. And then lastly, the roadmap for our tonight session. Next. Next slide. So this is all the competition that I have participated so far. Just a little bit of myself. I started off my journey just like you guys by participating in AAC way back in 2023 when I was a first year together with brother Aiman Firdaus, and we were crowned the champion of that particular competition. And during the finals, we were given the opportunity actually to submit in front of two High Court judges, namely Dato Norin and Dato Firoz. They are now in Court of Appeal judges. And then my next competition was pengujahan mahkamah where we mooted in Bahasa Melayu. And then my third competition is Law Asia 2024. And then I again returned to AAC last year, 2024. But that time as a coach, and my team managed to secure a semi-final spot as well as receiving the Spirit of Law Asia, Spirit of AAC. So just to give you guys a bit of tips on how to win Spirit of AAC, you need to get around and mingle around, introduce yourself to a lot of teams, just be friendly. Uh, just to keep it short lah. And then my next competition was JSERP and then Law Asia again. And my recent achievement or the team's achievement was in Law Asia International 2025 last month, where we went to Vietnam and we managed to win the best memorial out of all teams. We went against SMU, and US. You guys can name it, all the law school in Asia. And then next. Next slide. So, what is mooting is all about? So, most people are going to expect that mooting is where counsel is going to shout at each other, just like I don't want to say that it is similar to debate. However, there are some similarities between mooting and debate. In debate, you are going to take turns, just like mooting. The appellant going to start first, followed by the respondent later on. And mooting, the facts are already settled. You no longer basically argue on the facts of the case. The facts are already mentioned in the moot problem. So you guys are bound by the moot problem. You guys cannot dispute the facts stated in the moot problem. There will be no witness for you to cross-examine and so on. And this is not like the suit where you can see Harvey Specter just walk around the courtroom and approach the bench, examine the witness. No, mooting is not like that. So in mooting, you are going to stand behind your table or rostrum, and then you are going to submit your case. So most people would expect that the judges would just stay and listen to your case. No. In mooting, the core of mooting is that the judges will always interfere in your submission unless you get a silent bench lah. If you get a silent bench, you are the one that need to ask question to the bench. If I may clarify anything from the bench and so on, later on, I will introduce you guys how to engage with a silent bench. And there are types of judges that you guys will meet along your mooting journey. Okay, next one. Next. So there are some skills that you guys will gain by joining mooting. But before I want to introduce you guys to all these skills, by joining Mooting, by participating in AAC alone, you guys are already further steps away from most of your batchmates. Most of your batchmates don't even have the courage to participate in Mooting or a selection, and therefore you guys are quite special for having that courage. So, mooting is not just about arguing your case. It's about researching and do a lot of analysis. You guys will read a lot of cases, a lot of statute, a lot of law, facts, and how to apply it. That is for your oral advocacy. And then next, you are guys going to have a lot of persuasive writing when you are writing your memorial. When you are writing your memorial, you need to do some readjustment, a lot of readjustment actually. Sometimes I can still remember back then when I was writing for Jessup Memorial, I have to restructure a single paragraph again and again and again just to get the right tone, just to get the right sentence. Even a single word could get around my mind for about a week, such as the word contravene, whether I want to use the word contravene or contrary to a certain law. And again, it's a matter of framing and wording for your written submission or sorry your memorial. And then obviously in mooting you are going to do a lot of public speaking and confidence. Just want to be frank with all of you guys. Way back in my first year, my English wasn't that good. Even right now my English is not that good. However, I built that confidence in order to speak in English because I joined mooting. You in mooting you guys will have this environment where people constantly talk in English, and you are forced, I would say, to also counter the argument in English. So if you guys have bad English and so on, just don't worry about it. You guys will practice, and through practice you guys can have or develop this confidence to speak in English. Although your grammar is a bit here and there, no worry, don't worry about that. And then, of course, your critical thinking. You are going to question a lot of things. You are going to question the facts. Why is the facts like this? Why is the facts not like that? Why the law is like this? Why the judge did not decide in this way? So that is where you are going to ask for a reason on a certain thing. When you read a judgment, you will not just look at the order itself, such as the court order the respondent to do specific performance. No, you are going to look at the reason for the specific performance. Why the court orders specific performance? Because damages alone is not enough. It is not adequate to the plaintiff. And then teamwork and work ethic. So when you are in a team, obviously you guys need to work a lot with each other. So when you guys work a lot and between each other, you are going to exchange a lot of information. My tips is that in the early stage, you guys need to get to know each other. Maybe exchange Instagram account. Maybe just go and eat together, have dinner together, and you need to first establish some sort of bonding between the team before you guys go through deep research, late night writing, memorial, and so on. So one of the example that I can give of developing work ethic in mooting is that when your lead counsel already finished with his memory, obviously you don't want to see your part still empty. Obviously, you want to feel at least something in your part, and that is why you will develop a good work ethic by joining mooting. And then lastly, of time management. So for time management, you see, most of your batchmate going to ask you, how are you going to manage mooting and study in the same time? And how do certain people achieve a lot of great thing while studying? So the secret is that by joining a lot of things, you keep yourself occupied. When you keep yourself occupied, you have things that will you need to think about. You need to properly schedule your time. You need to properly put your priority and so on. And when you put your priority, it is something that not everyone does it. And when they don't do it, that is when you have a lot of wasting time by doom scrolling and so on. And again, by joining Mooting, it is already a good thing for you to gain a lot of these skills. So next slide, please. Next. Okay. So this is the peak of IIUM Mooting scene. So way back in 2005. Oh, before that, I need to tell you guys first about JSUP International. Anyone here know what is JSUP International Moot competition? Oh, okay. So, JSUP International Mooting Competition is the most prestigious mooting competition that you can have. This is where all the law school in the world basically compete. You guys name it lah, like Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, Yale, all the Ivy League school. So way back in 2005, IUM managed to reach the final of JSUP International. And back then, Malaysia was represented by Madam Aliza and Melati. So even the great UM Law School could not get to this particular level. And in fact, IUM managed to reach this level, and it is a great achievement for us. And now it is on you guys to carry on the torch. Maybe one day you guys will be on the screen submitting in front of ICJ judges. ICJ stands for International Court of Justice. It is something that people talk about recently. Uh, so that's basically the point. Just have a big dream. You know, it's not something that it's not a fault for you to have a big dream. Maybe later on you will have your face here. Okay, next. So we are going to divide our session tonight into three phases. Firstly, we are going to dissect the mood problem, and then we are going to go through some skills that you need to have during your oral advocacy, and then thirdly, memorial. I'm going to present the mood problem part and oral advocacy, maybe half of it, and then the third, which is the memorial part, is going to be presented by my learned friend here, Aiman Fidaus. So next. Next. Okay. Before we dive deep into this, it's too quiet, you know, it's too quiet. Maybe I just want to present my own screen and ask you guys. Okay. What you guys think? What's your take about the mood problem currently? Just scan the QR code and put whatever word you want to describe about the mood problem. Complicated like woman. Okay. Sama-sama. Confusing. How confusing is it? Sama-sama. Pening kepala. Ayo. What's that? Scare. Insanity. No, it's not insane. It's doable. Trust me. Okay. I'm hoping I'm an IT student. No, you are a law student now. It's not about all that cybersecurity and AI and so on. No worries. Queen, pening kepala, unpredictable, fun. Okay, fun. At least someone have fun reading the mood problem. So. Oh, so. Inshallah menang. Okay, that's the spirit that we want. Champion. Okay. Basic knowledge of mooting. Boleh lah. Unpredictable. Sama-sama. Okay, I think that's enough lah. So, uh, where's the slide, please? So I know that it's not easy at first for you to get slapped by 46 pages of mood problem. However, it's normal for mood problem to have such a lengthy problem facts. I mean, most of them are just exhibit for you to refer to and support your argument. The statement of facts actually just, if I'm not mistaken, 10 pages and so on. Just 10 pages. Maybe you would want to focus a lot on the core issue of the problem rather than looking at all those cybersecurity, having IT knowledge, and so on. Again, you are there to argue on a case on a point of law rather than a point of fact. You are not trying to establish a new fact. You are going to argue on a point of law whether the lower judge had erred in their judgment. So now, first of all, when you receive the mood problem, what is the first thing that you do? Obviously, for first timer, you are going to read the first page until the last page. No, that is the incorrect way of reading a mood problem. When you receive a mood problem like this, I don't know if you guys like this. Okay, this one is 61 page. Oh, no, it's not 61, it's 156 pages. So you guys would want to look at the back at the last page where you guys can find the issue of the problem. So what are the issues actually? The issue is where you need to get the context of the case, why the case exists in the first place, what is the point that you want to appeal on. So you need to read and understand the issues at the back of the problem first. Only then you start at the first page until the last. So get that into your head by reading the issue. Only then you move on to your problem. So after you're done with the first step, you would want to go to the next step, which is identifying who are the parties to the mood problem, who are the main character, who are the side character. Like the mood problem actually do have side character, main character, and so on. So that is when you need to identify who are the real parties who are causing the whole problem in the first place. So maybe you are going to have like three parties where you have dispute party A, party E, party B, party C. So actually the one that caused the whole problem is party C, but A wanted to sue party B. So how are you going to do that? So that is why it is very important for you to first identify the party correctly, say their name, and so on. It's better for you to make even a list who are the parties that involved in the case so that you don't suddenly blank in your head, and when you are submitting in front of judges you just couldn't remember their name. Just don't do that. And then the third step is for you to create a timeline. So just now someone mentioned that the problem so lah, boleh lah, insanity and so on, complicated like woman. Please, mood problem, the whole purpose of a mood problem is messy on purpose. It is your job to actually make it smooth, to rearrange it a bit, get the facts correct, just basically create a timeline lah. How is it start? What's the climax of the case? And how is it going to end? So uh just keep aware of the dates, because the dates is something that you guys would want to argue a lot, especially whether a certain conduct during a particular period would constitute I mean negligence, I would say, and so on. That is why you need to get a timeline whether during the gap in the timeline it is reasonable for a person to do that or otherwise. So next slide please. So this is example of timeline and parties and their connection. So this is way back in Indonesia, 2025, where we used to have this timeline. We need to really get to know the date, the exact date when certain things happen. Because when you know when a certain things happen and you compare that to the date of the claim itself, maybe there's a quite a gap. Maybe there's a gap there. You would want to fill that, and then the connection between the parties. Just now I mentioned party A, party B, party C, but when you go on in your mooting journey, even your current problem, I think there are a lot of parties that involve, but you need to again look who are the main character and who are the side character who actually caused the problem and what are the connection between them. Okay, next. Okay, this is the best method for you to draft your submission, whether it is the memorial, whether it is your whatever your script and so on. First, you need to ask yourself this question: why are you bringing this up in the first place? So this is the core of the mood problem. As an appellant, you need to ask whether there's been some injustice toward your client as the appellant, and whether for the respondent, you are going to ask whether the judgment of the lower court is correct or otherwise. So basically, you bring the case because the lower court has erred in their judgment so as to cause injustice toward your client as the appellant, and that is why you bring the case to the higher court. You want to appeal against the decision of the lower court and want it to be reversed. So, uh, on the other hand, as a respondent, you would want to prove to the court that the judgment of the lower court is basically correct, and there's nothing for this court to judge, and the case should be dismissed. So you need to identify the objective of the claim in the first place and why the issue are there. So only then you ask the second question. It's what do you want from the court? You want the court to grant you specific performance, or you want the court to grant you what uh, a declaration that the respondent had breached the contract, or you want to claim damages and so on. And in legalese, we term this as the praise of relief, your end goal in your submission. By the end of your submission, what would you want from the court? You want the court to be on your side? Okay, we can side it with you, but what you want from us? That is the question that you need to ask yourself. Basically, what you want at the end of the day. And then lastly, how do you achieve it? So this is going to be the substance of your submission. How are you going to achieve what you want? Let's say you want the decision of the lower court to be reversed. So how do you going to achieve that? By showing the court, not just tell them. You need to show the court why the decision of the lower court had some error in their law or in their application of the fact. So if there's some error in the application of the fact or the application of the law by the lower court, only then the higher court is justified to reverse the decision. So how are you going to show them, not just tell them? You need to show them by saying that, okay, by pointing out the facts in the mood problem. Okay, by first showing, oh, the judgment can be found in exhibit ni. So in paragraph this, the court may found the judgment of the Court of Appeal whereby it says here this. However, if we look at the facts of the case based on page this, paragraph this, the facts actually mention this, and therefore that is why the Court of Appeal has misapplied the law into the facts of the case. So that's just an example. How are you going to show them that there's some error in the judgment? Okay, so far so good. Okay, next one. So this is how you are going to kickstart your research strategy. Firstly, you are going to identify the sources of the law. Just distinguish first your primary and secondary sources. What case would be binding? I think based on the current problem, it's the highest court of the land, the Federal Court of some fictional country, so there's nothing binding them, and everything is persuasive, I believe. You may cite anything ranging from England court, UK court, Malaysian court, Singapore court, whatever it is. It's all going to be persuasive at this stage. But if I'm not mistaken, in certain paragraph of the problem, it also mentioned that something similar. They do have a statute called Civil Law Act, something something. So you would want to check Civil Law Act Section 3, whereby there may be a decision that is binding on the federal court of the fictional country. And then you need to identify the jurisdiction of the court, whether the court have the jurisdiction to hear the dispute itself. And then in every problem, this is for the last stage of your research. Every problem do have this one case where it is so similar, facts, law, and so on, the lower court decision. You might want to find that killer case where it is so similar to your case, your current case. So unless and until you guys find that case, you guys might want to still continue your research. But while doing all this research and writing your memorial, please do not forget to train your oral advocacy. Okay, next. So we are going to start oral advocacy. So this is the outline of our oral advocacy workshop today. Firstly, we are going to brief you about the structure of your oral submission and your written memo, your delivery as the appellant and your respondent, and then third, judicial intervention, or basically question from the judges, and then rebuttals. Okay, next. So this is an example of my own script. Firstly, your introduction. You see that introduction part where I color coded as purple, introduction and so on. Good morning, yada yada, to before this tribunal deals with the merits of the case. So this is the golden minute. You don't want to flop at your introduction. As Harvey Specter would say, if you start behind the 8 ball, you will never get in front. So you would want to practice this over and over and over again. You want to perfect your introduction by whatever means it is. So for court setting, you want to start your submission by saying that, may it please this court, my name is yada yada. And firstly, you need to introduce the parties. My name is Iman Hakim, and today I appear on behalf of this. Meanwhile, the respondent, name of the respondent yada yada, is represented by Mr. Aiman Firdaus. So after that, this is my personal tips. You don't want to ask the judges whether they want to have the brief facts of the case. You just straight away tell them the brief of the case. But this is personal preference lah, because for me, if you straight away tell the facts of the case to the judges, you have the upper hand as an appellant because you set the narrative. For example, here, members of the tribunal, the case at hand today is best described as empty promises. So that is where you start, put the narrative to the judges, how the judges would want to think about the case that you have today. So by hearing that, oh, the respondent today provide empty promises, at the end of the day, they are not going to enforce or do their obligation under the contract. That is the narrative. And then you are going to provide bird's eye structure. So you want to introduce to the panel of judges what are the issues that you are going to present and the issue that are going to be dealt by your co-counsel. So if you are going to submit on the first and second issue, you are going to say that. So when you stand, panel of judges, today I'm going to present the first and second issue, while my co-counsel going to continue for the third and fourth issue. After you done that, this is something that my coach used to say, a structure within a structure. A structure within a structure is basically a roadmap of your submission. A roadmap of your submission is where you get a lot of point in order to show the court why there is some error in the judgment, or how you show the court that the case should be on your side. For example, for issue 1, I have 3 points. I'm going to say to the court that starting with the first issue, the respondent argued that they are entitled to sovereign immunity, or basically, starting with the first issue, the respondent had breached the contract. They breached the contract by first, did not do their obligation, second, by delaying their obligation, and then third, by not doing what they are supposed to do. So those are your structure within a structure, your roadmap. Okay. After you've done that, between the second and third point, I would say you need to have some signposting. What is signposting? It's basically a transition between your second issue and your third issue. You don't want to just straight away change the from point two to point three, as it would create some confusion for the judges. You would want something that is elegant for the judges to hear. Something like uh, having established that the respondent here had failed to do what they are supposed to do under the contract. The appellant now moved to the third point, whereby that is how you transition between the second issue and the third issue, or in other words, it's signposting. Okay. Next. So this is for your delivery. Generally, you would want your voice to be good. You don't want to drink anything, any ice on the competition day. Just drink something hot for your own voice, for your own good. Firstly, you need to have your pace very slow. You cannot be fast. If you are fast, then the judges don't have the time and did not catch your words. Or even when you are too fast, you tend to fumble, just like myself. To be frank with you guys, sometimes when I too eager to submit, I submit too fast. And when I submit too fast, just like that, I just proven my point. I fumble on certain words. So when I fumble on certain words, people tend not to understand what I'm saying currently. So that is why you need to have your pace very slow, not too slow lah, I would say. You need to have some emphasis on certain word, or maybe you would want to be fast on certain things that are too easy to understand, like something that is already tried, something that every people would understand. So on that part, you would want to be fast. But most of the time in your submission, you would want to be very, very slow. And then your tone. Your tone cannot be too formal. Even in court setting, you would want to have this conversation with the judges so that the judges don't feel that there is a barrier between the judge and yourself. Your whole point standing there to submit is to get your point across. You need to tell the judge why the case is on your side. So when there is a barrier between you and the judge, you cannot get your point across, basically. So by how are you going to get your point across? By having a conversation with the judge. When you are having a conversation with the judge, there are a two-way communication between you and the judge, and that is why you need to get question. By having question from the judge, meaning that the judge understand your case, understand your submission. So actually, get question from the judge is not a problem. It's a goal of your mooting. And also the volume of your voice. You cannot be too loud. You cannot shout at the judge. Judge, today I'm going to submit on point A, point B, point C. No, you need to sound still audible, something that people, you need to sound pleasant lah. In other words, in simpler term, you need to sound pleasant for the ear to hear. Okay, your body language. Your body language, you cannot stand like, you need to stand straight. You cannot stand like you don't want to submit, or you don't want to represent your client at all. So you need to stand straight and have some conviction in your submission. You need to believe in your submission. After you believe in your submission and your research and so on, only then you can stand straight and stand confidently. So at the end of the day, the whole point of mooting here is to have conviction and to have a good research. Only then you will achieve confidence in your submission. So other than that, you need to maintain your eye contact with the judges. You don't want to just read your your script all the way from the beginning until the end. Otherwise, the judges would feel very, very, very offended by that. They come all the way on weekend just to hear you reading your script. I mean, even my nephew can do that. So you don't want to read your script from the beginning until the end. You want to maintain eye contact with them. Maybe one or two time, maybe a few times you can refer back to your script. It's okay. It's totally understandable. Even I myself do that. Even some of the good mutter do that. It- but still, you need to maintain eye contact with them, especially when you are answering question, when you get question from them. You don't want to avoid eye contact. Keep eye contact with the judges. And then minimum gesture. You don't want to have your hand, okay, judge, I'm going to submit to you what I have today. No, you need to maintain a good hand gesture, minimum hand gesture, maybe a little bit hand gesture like 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's all. Maybe for some people, they need to have their hand gesture in order for them to continue uh, saying things and speaking. And that's totally fine. I do have the same problem. I need to keep my hand moving in order for me to get more idea in my head. And how do I encounter that particular problem? I have pen on my hand. I would just continuously shake the pen, or I would just hold the rostrum. Later on, when you have the rostrum on you, with you, just hold the rostrum as strong as you could, and that is how I managed to control my hand gesture and so on. And then lastly, court decorum. Court decorum is basically how you have this formality with judges. Although you are still in a conversational mode with judges, you need to have some formality. How you address the judges is my lord, my lady, so on. How you address your opposing counsel is my learned friend just now submitted this. So mooting, as opposed to debate, is more polite. You are going to have a lot of courtesy with the judges, with your opposing counsel. Although your opposing counsel could be a pain, but still you need to be you need to be polite to them. Just use formal language. Later on, I will show you guys some of the language that we usually use in court setting environment for mooting. And then we start with the appellant. So for the appellant, you need to have this tone where you respectfully dissatisfied with the judgment of the lower court. So you are going to show them again a clear error has occurred and need to be corrected by the higher court. Also, you need to have some impactful language. Not too impactful, something that, for example, the respondent today had breached the contract. It doesn't sound impactful. You would want to change the word breach to something. uh, Panel of judges, the respondent today had contravened the clear language of the contract, whereby they need to perform a certain patch. However, that does not occur in our current case today. For example, so you need to have this tone where you are very dissatisfied with the judgment, and you need to show it to the court. So next, build your case. So as a appellant, you are on the offense. You are going to tell the court, and you have the upper hand of setting the narrative. Just like just now, I show you guys. You don't ask the judge to whether they want to hear the brief facts of the case. You straight away tell them, judge, the brief facts of the case is this. You are going to portray the respondent as bad as they are, as sinful as they are, and so on. But please do not be too aggressive. And also, you need to set out clearly and guide the court the specific error of the judgment below. Moreover, maybe you would want to set the facts clearly. So the problem is 46 pages long. So the judges wouldn't have that much time to read all the way from the first page until the last page. You want to simplify the facts as much as you could. from the first page until the very last exhibit of the problem. So how are you going to do that? Firstly, you would want to write the core of the issue. What are the important facts that you need to have? And maybe you would want to use AI. It's it's not a problem for you to use AI at all, but just do insert some human interaction or human feeling lah to the AI punya summarization of the fact. Please don't just entirely rely on AI. And maybe as a appellant, you need to keep this in mind. You need to build your case. You cannot just preempt your facts all the way from the very beginning until the end. You need to have a mindset that you need to build a case uh, against the judgment of the lower court. So how do you build your case? You build your case by having first, what are the errors? And then second, what is the correct law? And then third, what is the correct application of the law? Only then you can show the court, this is my case. Okay, quite clear so far? Okay, next, preamp. So what is preamp? Preamp is basically certain facts that, wait. No. Go back. Okay, what is preamp? Preamp, preamp is basically you preempt a certain facts of the case that is too obvious that the other side will use. As an appellant, this is your best weapon against the respondent. The respondent is obviously going to cite a certain facts that is in favor of them. So you would want to take that fact first, put it in your script, and say to the court that, panel of judges, my lord, the respondent will later on say that this. However, we respectfully disagreed. We disagreed because yada. So that is how you preempt. Okay, maybe we can go through the example first before we go to respondent. Okay, next slide. The example for appellant. Next. Oh, wait. Okay, this one. Wait. I want to show them the decorum language. Okay, this is how you address the court first. May it please the court, my name is Eda. And then, since you guys are doing the highest court of the land, you want to address the judges as my lord, my lady, and so on. As the court rightly pointed out, and that is something that is common lah among mooters. We love to take the opinion of the judges, but sometimes certain judges, especially old judges, didn't want or didn't like their opinion to be taken by the council. So please first identify whether the judges like your style or otherwise. If they don't like your style, you would want to change it immediately, there and there. So when you are referring to your opponent, you refer them as my learned friend. With respect to my learned friend, he has mischaracterized the issue. This is a big warning for everyone. Do not ever use the word my opposing counsel has misled the court in every way. No, the respondent is misleading the court. No, please do not use the word misleading, because I and my team was scolded once for using that particular word, the word misleading, and it cost us the round. Maybe lah, I don't know. But the thing is, the whole point is do not be too aggressive by using the word misleading. And then your signposting and transitioning. So when you transition yourself from first point to the second point, these are some of the language that we want to use. This brings me to my second submission. If the court has no further question on this point, I will move on. Turning on this next issue, okay. And then when you responding to a certain question, you need to identify whether it is a yes or no question. When it is a yes or no question, just simply answer yes, my lord, no, my lord, negative, my lord, affirmative, my lord. When you don't agree with a certain point or certain reason given by the lord, We beg to differ, my lord, for two reasons. My lord, the answer to that question is yada yada. My lord, I understand the question correctly. That is correct, my lord. Okay, okay. When you are handling certain difficulty, there will always be question that you don't have the answer to it. And maybe out of nowhere, you hate just blank, you don't know the answer. You will say to the court, my apologies, my lord, I could not assist you on that matter. Or you could also say that, my apologies, my lord, if the facts are silent. The facts could not be exhaustive. The facts always be non-exhaustive. So you say to the court, my lord, the record or the problem is silent on that matter. And then you move on. Carry on with your submission. Okay, next. Next slide. So this is an example of a narrative as an appellant. Uh, the first one I already introduced to you guys. Just move to the second one. Okay, if the tribunal is satisfied, I shall move on to the second issue where the respondent is now present themselves. So this is where you set the stage as the appellant. You want to portray them as villainous as possible. Uh, that is the upper hand, I would say, as the appellant. And then your preamp need to be so good. Otherwise, it will just be something that out of context. You need to put some context first before you preamp the argument made by the respondent. So, example of a context is maybe you want to take the facts of the case, maybe paragraph something something, and then you are going to say, my lord, the respondent in their submission later on will use the facts on page yada yada, paragraph yada yada. However, we respectfully disagree with that particular fact because it is against the law. The law said this. Or you want to say that that does not meet a certain threshold. The threshold that is needed can be referred to the case of yada yada. So when you do preempt, you would want to support it with case or any authority so that your preempt sounds good. It doesn't sound some baseless rationale and so on. So could, could you go back to the slide back where I introduced the oral advocacy? One more. Okay. So now for the respondent. So as the respondent, first of all, you need to, as the name suggests, you need to respond to the argument made by the appellant. You don't want to build your case. You want to destroy their case. So how are you going to do that? Firstly, you need to listen to them. And then you need to jot down some notes. Only then you can respond. If you don't listen to their submission, how are you going to respond to them? Okay. So as a respondent, you need to be assertive, but please do it politely. Do not be too eager. If you are too eager, you will lose your script, you will lose your tone, you will lose your pace, you will lose your clarity in your mind. If you don't have clarity in your mind, you are going nowhere. You're just throwing words to the judges. So your tone as respondent need to be calm, need to be someone reasonable, someone that just okay, maybe we did that. However, uh, that does not meet the threshold of being grossly negligent and so on. So what do I mean by that? Actually, again, you need to show to the court that you are reasonable. As a reasonable respondent, you don't want to sound like, oh, it is not our fault. It is the appellant fault for not asking us. Da, 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 da. No, you need to acknowledge certain facts as a respondent, certain bad facts. There will always be bad facts for the appellant and respondent. As a respondent, you again, as a reasonable person in the room, you need to sound like, okay, we agreed with the appellant on the facts of the case on paragraph this. However, they fail to mention this. They are simply hiding the truth from the panel of judges today. Also, uh, one of the mistakes that new mooter always do is that they tend to follow the pace of their opposing counsel as a respondent. So your opposing counsel, uh, sometimes they are nervous and they submit too fast. They will just read their script from the start until the end. You don't want to follow their pace. You would want to follow your own pace. Please do not be a FOMO and follow their pace. Keep your pace slow as respondent so that the judges know what you are saying, so that the judges understand your case. As respondent, sometimes your structure can be a bit off. If your appellant punya structure macam sikit, obviously your structure pun will mirror their own structure. That is something quite common lah for mooting. So that is why you need to be very slow as respondent. You need to again guide the judges why the appellant case uh, cannot stand. Always remember in your head that you need to be you need to have clarity, you need to have your legal authority with you all the time. Although you can have your script, you still need to keep some holes so that you can fill it with the argument made by the appellant. Later on I will show you the example that I used to do as respondent. And certain things as respondent, you don't even have to respond to the argument made by the appellant, something that the judges don't even buy in the first place. You might want to point out, but you don't necessarily have to respond to that. Uh, for example, if the judges don't buy the argument made by the appellant on certain issue, you want to point it out, as correctly pointed out by Judge Aiman. The argument made by the appellant cannot stand. Okay, you point out, but you don't respond to it. However, you need to respond to the best argument made by the appellant. If certain arguments are just too good and the judges buy it all from the start until the end, they just couldn't break their case. You want to respond to that particular argument. You need to take their best argument and then destroy it. When you're done destroying their best case, they don't have anything else to argue. Okay. Next example. Okay, next. Next. Oh, wait. This one. Okay. This is the holes in your script. Oh, wait. Okay, these are the holes in your script. Certain holes, such as this. Members of the tribunal, or may it please the court, the appellant just now submitted 1, 2, 3. I'm going to deal with all of this issue in turn. So first of all, this is your bird's eye structure. The argument by the appellant, you are going to put it here. Okay. And then these are the little argument made by the appellant. Firstly, on the first issue, or on your first point, if they say that the appellant here or the respondent breached the contract, you would want to say the opposite, right? You don't want to say just the opposite. You need to say it, but not just that. You need to put the core of their submission also. Okay, if they say that the respondent breached the contract because yada, you need to put the reason of their submission. If you don't counter their reason, it's going to stand. When the reason stand, they have a case against you. So that is not something that the respondent would want. Okay, and then if you can see at the right marginal, I left some notes. So those are the spaces I need when I'm doing respondent to fill the gap or anything, any argument that sounds good to me. I'm going to put it there and quickly put my response. So being a respondent is not going to be easy, I tell you guys, because you need to think on your feet. You need to think there and there. You need to make the argument there. So this is where best mooter shines. They can think on the spot. Although you guys are bound by your memorial, uh, certain facts, the rules, if I'm not mistaken, do mention that you can depart from your memorial, provided that it is in response to the argument made by the appellant. So those are the part that you are going to fill in those holes in your script. So next, so we wait for the example here. Okay, try play.
Good afternoon and welcome
Minutes
to the 2025
47,
White and Case
43.
Jessup Cup World Championship match of the Philip C. Jessup International Law Moot Court Competition.
Thank you. May it please the court.
Thank you. When the respondent's first speaker is ready, then the respondent's first speaker may take the floor.
Try 49. 49 minutes. Okay.
Hear the claim.
Nice.
This court
So this is
should
the quality of
nevertheless find
oral
the
delivery
respondent
that you would
did not
want to
violate
reach
the international legal
throughout
rules on
your
jurisdiction
training.
or
So unless and
immunities
until you guys
by
reach
arresting and
this
prosecuting
style and so
Minister
on,
Cross. And so I
tell your
begin
coach
first
to
with my
just keep
submissions
training you.
concerning the jurisdiction
So please,
of this court.
this is the
Agent for
standard
the
that you guys want
applicant
to
has
put.
rightly
Although at the end of the day, or on the
is
competition day,
founded
you
on
guys
Article
wouldn't reach this
21
level.
of the
This is something
Charter
that you
for the
guys want to
Organization for
set an
Cooperation
example.
and Development in the Pain, under which what
So
parties had
this is
effectively
this
agreed
year
would be to
Jessup
accept this
2025
court's
international
compulsory jurisdiction,
competition.
barring two
Maybe you guys
carefully
can watch this
negotiated
yourself later on.
exceptions. The first, a temporal exception, and the second,
Okay, stop. Just next slide. Okay, now the whole point of having mooting is to handle question from judges. So as I mentioned earlier, having question is not a problem. It is the goal of your mooting. You want to invite question from the judges. It means that the judges are engaged with you. They understand your case. They get what you are submitting. So generally there are three kind of judges. First, hot judge, and then second, helper judge, and then third, silent judge. So for the first, or the formula, the best kind of judge is the hot judge, because for hot judge, they are going to ask you a lot of questions, but if you get to answer all of the questions posed by him or her, you will get a lot of marks. So the judge will grill you once you start open your mouth, or even sometimes you don't even open your mouth, they will start ask question to you. For example, once the judge walk into the room, he will ask, what's your name? What are the issue that you are going to present? And so on. Who are the parties? So it's going to caught you off guard lah. But just be prepared with that. They are going to make you life, going to make your life a living hell in a room. So please be prepared to have hot judge. So this is the judge that will literally question everything, starting from your facts, your structure, your law, and so on. So even your brief facts of the case, they are going to question like, why are you saying like that? The respondent doesn't do that, and so on. So do you have any basis for that? Uh, that's how hot judge is going to test you. They might even do cross-examine on you on the spot. They are going to ask yes or no question first, like Uh, does the respondent do that? No. Does the respondent do this? No. So if they don't do both, how could you say that they breached the contract? So on. So just those are the trap question that you need to handle. You need to first take your time and examine whether the question is going to trap you, or you would want to say otherwise to the judge in your question. So but actually most of them are quite kind. But when the session end, they will say a lot of great things about you, about your team, and even give you a lot of high marks, 90 plus and so on. So now we move to the second category of judge, the friendly judge. So the friendly judge will just try to help you in your argument, will help to get your clarity in your submission, even suggest a better position. Uh, I encountered this kind of judge before when I was grilled by the hot judge. The kind judge or the helper judge asked me, "Are you trying to say this?" Or that is the kind of judge that you will categorize as the helper judge. They will not ask you a difficult question. Even they might straight away give you the answer to a certain question, or even tone down the hot judge. And then lastly, the silent judge. The silent judge is quite confusing. Sometimes they get your case, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't even read the problem, and that is why they are silent. So this is where you need to engage with the judge. You need to constantly ask questions to them, whether there is anything I could clarify for this court, or you would want to look them in the eyes. Sometimes they just hangguk their case, macam hangguk dia punya kepala macam faham faham, but actually they know they don't. Diorang tak faham langsung what you are saying on the rostrum. And it is a matter of evaluation lah. You need to evaluate whether judge ni faham ke tak what you are saying or not. So if you get all three judges silent on you, this is where you need to bait the judge to ask question. You would want to pose question to them, like, what if respondent do that? But in reality, they don't. So those are the kind of judges that you will face throughout your mooting journey. Maybe I would want to pass the floor to my friend here, Aiman Fidaus, and he will uh, cover the rest of the session. Thank you.
Yes, welcome everyone. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So now,
Aiman. Aiman, you're not audible now.
next slide, please. Okay, am I audible? Okay. So now moving on to the next part of my presentation. Thank you to Brother Iman for his excellent presentation just now. But I will try to proceed until 9:55, and then we proceed with the part of to write your memorial or written submission. Now to the next part, which is to understand the question, because sometimes there is a tendency among the oralists or the mooters or even me, whereby you try to assume or imagine that each and every question posed by the bench try to trap or try to kill your submission or your case. But we need to understand a different type of question. Number one, you must let the judges finish their question first. This is very essential for all mooters, irrespective whether you are novice or experienced mooters, because there is a possibility that at the in the middle of the question posed by the judges, and then suddenly you interrupt and disturb the question, it will give two things to the judges. Either you are being rude to the bench, or you didn't answer that particular question. So it is very important for everyone to make sure that the judges finish their question first, and then you take a breath for about 5 seconds, and then try to structure your flow of thoughts and then answer that. So to make sure that your answer is actually can give can enlighten the understanding of the judge, because sometimes that's why we proceed to the next step, which is it a yes or no question? Because once the judges ask you, is it yes or no? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? If I put it to you, or this is a statement, and then do you agree with me? All this kind of question, you must answer yes or no. But I know sometimes as a law student, we have a tendency to just explain and elaborating every single things. But it is very important for you to just summarize and make it brief so that you didn't drag your time and then you have to request for an extension of time. We have to minimize the possibility of requesting any extension of time to the bench. Next thing is that, is it a trap question or not? There is a chance that the judges will give a question number one, and then question number two, whether or not you must be consistent or you will be contradict with your first question, first answer after that. That's why when you are answering every question, you must think twice whether my answer will affect my whole submission, or not only that, it will affect my other colleagues' submission as well. That's why, for example, in mooting or arbitration, issue number one and issue number two usually pertaining to the procedural matters, and issue number three and the last issue in respect to the merits matter or the substantive law. Sometimes the question posed to the second counsel, which is the co-counsel, let's say I answer yes, that particular answer is actually contradicting and can indirectly kill my first or learned friend, the lead counsel submission just now. That's why it is very important. Not only you must understand and try to internalize. Our alumni and coaches usually use the word internalize your script, not memorize, because once you internalize your script, you can actually answer that particular question without contradicting yourself and your lead or co-counsel. And then, is it about the law or about the fact? So for this particular question, I know that when you are presenting your submission before the judges, you must be balanced, not to focus more on facts and do not rely heavily on the law. That's why once the judges ask you about that particular opinion or perspective, you must know whether he want the law or the fact. That's why when the if I can give advice to all of you, the very important thing is that you must know the concern of the bench. Sometimes you know that the opposing counsel or your opponent didn't answer that question properly or correctly. So you must get or take that opportunity and chance to address that particular question so that you can bring into your submission to show that you and your case is actually stronger compared to your opponent. So I think that's all for our oral skill. Now we proceed to the mastery of memory awaited submission. We can give some minutes to our committee to change the slide. Okay, thank you to our committee for sharing this slide. So just to give introduction about myself, Muhammad Ahmed Firdaus, I am a third year law student, similar with Brother Iman just now, and we have been the teammates for IT more than 3 competitions in the university and as well as national. So for the last part of our presentation today is the art of persuasion in writing, mastering the memorials, because we must differentiate between presenting your submission and arguments before the learned judges and the way you are writing down your arguments on the memorials. So next slide. Okay, so basically just about my achievement and participation in Mooting, and basically these are my former teammates in our International Law Asia last year, and Alhamdulillah we have achieved the Best Memorial Award for last year, and Alhamdulillah Brother Iman and the Law Asia team this year also consistently achieved the Best Memorial Award for this competition, Law Asia, the 19th and 20th edition. Next slide. Okay, now we proceed to the crucial part, which is the tips and tricks in memorials. Number one, if I can suggest to all the novice mooters, or especially including me, which is you must differentiate between the way you have the written memorials and the way you proceed or you present your oral submission. Because in oral submission, you must prioritize the strongest argument, or you must submit only the important ones before the judges. But in the written memorials, you must write down and enumerate all your possible arguments from the strongest one until the weakest, or the point that you didn't think that the opponent will raise or argue. You must also put that in your written memorial, because in this particular written memorials, let's say whether the memory is binding to you or not. That's why it is very important for you to list down all your possible argument, and then at this particular moment you can get the advantage to prioritize which one should be we should be written in the first, and which one should be written in the next part of your one body of pleadings. Secondly, it is very important for you to maneuver your flow of ideas, because we have a lot of arguments and a lot of ideas before and after we have reading our mood problem. That's why in order for you to make sure that the juries and the judges know what is exactly your point A, point B, and point C, you must maneuver your flow of ideas one by one. And this is actually the tricky part, because for you, you know that there's line of argument suitable for you, but once you deliver that particular arguments before your coaches or your alumni or judges, in fact, they cannot focus, or they're actually baffling or confusing your particular submission. That's why you must always train and try to restructure your ideas in order for that it can make sure it can cast light on the judges as well as your other teammates. And then always start with the strongest argument. And last but not least, hierarchy of cases and authorities. Since your mood problem for this year is an appeal to the federal court, that's why my suggestion to all teams and novice mooters, or maybe the coaches, to prioritize and use only federal court cases from Malaysian jurisdiction. Even though you want to apply Court of Appeal, High Court, or other jurisdiction Commonwealth countries decision, is only persuasive. And that is the crucial point that the judges will attack you. Why this is case should be bind this federal court? Is it persuasive? Is it binding? So to minimize or try to avoid all this kind of question, always use the highest case and the most binding case in your particular mood problem. So next slide. Okay, now for the first part, which is the cover page, this is actually not similar with the example of memorial that have been sent in your participant kit. This is actually my team memorial for our previous AAC, which is, if you can see the first part of my presentation just now, the first picture is my team, me and Brother Iman in our first AAC 2023. And the second picture is me and my team in last year. So this is their names, and three of them, Shafika, Nuris, and Safia, have been the coaches for this AAC. So I hope and I pray some of you will be the coaches for our upcoming AAC 2026. Now, for the cover page, there are several things that should be included for the first part, or the first impression that should be received by the judges is your team number, the adjudicating body, which tournament and what is your tournament, and where does this competition or where does this case is brought upon, whether before the International Asian International Arbitration Center, the Federal Court of Malaysia, Court of Appeal Malaysia. You must put in the first part or in the above part of your cover page memorial. Then proceed with memorial for respondent or memorial for appellant. Then the title for your mood problem, like previously a case concerning Havenport Neurosecure Sale and Purchase Agreement between which party? The name of the party, claimant, and the respondent and the title respondent. And you must list down the lead counsel, the co-counsel, as well as supporting counsel. Only the lead counsel or co-counsel will be delivered for that particular session for appellant and the respondent. So next slide. Okay, now for the statement of jurisdiction, why is it very pertinent for us to deliver or lay down the statement of jurisdiction? Because in this particular part, which is the statement of jurisdiction, will determine or you will mention before the judges who are the claimant, who are the respondent, or who are any intervening parties in this particular proceeding. And at this particular part of your memo also, you can include what are the laws applicable to both parties, because only like for previous competition, it is arbitration. So what are the governing frameworks or international treaty and conventions that binds the parties? And in this particular AAC, maybe you can cite any Malaysian statute or any statute that has been incorporated in that particular country, because only that act of parliament, state enactment that binds the party, not any other jurisdiction, statute or laws. So next slide. Now, the main part of your memorial should be the pleadings, whereby you will include all your relevant and possible argument one by one. For example, in this particular example that I've shared with you, number one, you must start with the first issue. For example, the preconditions for arbitration must be complied, and in the affirmative, it has not been fulfilled by the claimant. Then you must start with your first argument, which is, for example, the letter A. The pre-arbitration steps are mandatory to be followed. And if you can see in my part of overview, preemption or even if argument, like what Brother Iman mentioned just now, sometimes there is certain facts that favor your opponent. So you must address them and try to rebut them. And this is what we call as even if argument or preemption. You must answer or refute that particular facts in favor of your opponent before they use it during their submission. And then the numbering of the paragraph, you cannot use like 1, 2, 3, and then you return back to 1, 2, 3. Cannot. We must use paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, or for example, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, or 2.1. And then last but not least, the paragraphing, like I mentioned just now, you must use number 1, 2, 3, and not 1, 2, 3, and then you return again 1, 2, 3. It is improper and it is incorrect for the written submission. Next slide. Okay, before I proceed to this particular part, which is citation of authorities, when you are writing the written submission of memorials, you must differentiate the way you use the word to submit and the way you use it in your written submission. For example, in your delivery or in your oral submission, maybe you use the word like my lords, there are three arguments that must be fulfilled by the claimant in order for us. Maybe there are three conjunctive elements that must be established by the plaintiff in order to prove the tort of negligence committed by the respondent. However, in your written submission, maybe you use like three conjunctive elements to prove tort of negligence have been stipulated in the federal court case of A against B in 2021. Always use the highest binding authorities and the most recent one to make sure that your written submission and your case before the judge will not be questioned by the benches, hot bench or the cold bench or silent bench. Now, for the citation of authorities, in every written submission, for me personally, the most important one is the body and the footnote. Why? Because this citation of authorities will guide any judges or even your opponent to actually know, is it correct your citation, or they want to know from where you get these particular authorities, from where you get these lines of argument or submission. So my tip is that number one, for every cases like the normal Malaysian cases. For example, number one, you must always start with the plaintiff and the respondent or the defendant, and then use the square bracket, the year, and then which volume, it first, second, Malayan Law Journal, current law journal, all Malaysian report, or any law report that you use, and then start with the and then proceed with the page number of the first page of that particular case, and then end it with the which court, high court, court of appeal, or federal court. But sometimes there are other groups that always use, after they have stopped at that high court, they will cite which paragraph or which page that particular sentence or that particular quotation are taken from. For example, the meaning of negligence is the for example, the three conjunctive elements of the tort of negligence are established in the federal court case of apa-apa in 2021, and then they put a footnote to show in at which paragraph in the actual judgment these three conjunctive elements are listed down by the learned judges. And then the next thing is that sometimes we have to use the secondary sources, which is the legal textbook or legal journals. And my suggestion and my advice, even not in this particular competition Mooting AAC, but in your assignment, in your academic writings, always use Chicago Manual of Style Reference, the latest one, the latest edition. For example, you cite Gore, which is one of an Indian criminal jurist, a textbook on the Indian Penal Code. The title of the book, New Delhi, India. The location of the publication, Oxford and IBH Publishing Co. Limited, the name of the publishers, and the year. And in your citation, always put the number of the page or the number of the paragraph to make sure not only you yourself or your teammates, but your opponents know from where you get this particular information from. We must be balanced, we must be fair, not only for ourselves, for our client, but also for our opponent, so that they can actually refute or counter back your arguments during their submission, during the competition. So the last part of my presentation, next slide, please. Okay, now for the prejudice for release. This is actually the last page of your written submission. You must clarify or you must show what is exactly that you are requesting from the bench or from the federal court. For example, we can use like the word in light of the submission above or on the basis of the foregoing submission. Counsel for the respondent respectfully invites or respectfully implores this honorable court to declare and adjudge that first, second, third, and fourth. But before that, if you can see the prayers for relief, we didn't use the word like whether or not the precondition for arbitration, whether or not the claimant has no sufficient grounds. Always use the affirmative and negative sentence. For example, the precondition for arbitration have not been complied or have been complied with. The claimant has sufficient grounds or the claimant has no sufficient grounds, because all these things will be the last things or the last submission that will be accepted by the tribunal or the judges, because you must show what are the summary of remedies or the summary of submission that should be taken into utmost consideration by the judges. So I think that's all for the memorial parts. I end my presentation now. We open for any question and answer session. Thank you so much from me and Brother Iman.
Jazakallahu khairan, Brother Aiman and Brother Is. Thank you.
And then he can't hear you.
Uh, okay. Jazakallahu khairan to Brother Aiman and Brother Iman for the comprehensive sharing. Now we would like to open the floor for a short Q&A session. Participants, feel free to unmute your mic to ask your question. Participants, you are allowed to type your question in the chat box if you do have questions. Um, so if there's no more question, we can proceed to the next tentative, which is our photography session. So Alhamdulillah, we have now come to the end of our AAC Intro to Mooting workshop. On behalf of the organizing committee, we would like to thank you, our
Oh,
speaker.
Master of Ceremony. I think we have one question from Brother
Yes.
Harid Ikwan. Yes, Brother Harid Ikwan. So his question is, what are the tips for finding similar case? So personally lah, my tips, you need to first identify the area of law and then the key terms for you to search. After you identify the area of law such as tort and so on, only after that you can narrow down your term for you to research. For example, you know that the area of law is tort, and then under tort law, what are the subheading such as negligence, gross negligence, and so on. So those are the terms. When you identify the terms, only then you can find similar cases. Okay, and then you might want to add certain other. You want to combine lah basically the terms. If you already put negligence, you would want to also put contract and so on. You combine the terms, and then you can find the similar case. According to the mood problem given, I already give some hint throughout my workshop just now. Even after answering the question, I dropped some hint already. Yeah, true. There's no such thing as dumb question. Just ask anything. So if there's no question, I think Master of Ceremony can proceed.
Okay, so Alhamdulillah, we have now come to the end of our AAC Intro to Mooting workshop. On behalf of the organizing committee, we would like to thank our speaker, Brother Aiman and Brother Iman, for their time and wisdom. And to all participants, thank you for your active engagement tonight. Before we disperse, we are going to have a short photography session. It would be much appreciated if everyone can kindly turn on their cameras for this moment.
Hey everyone, boleh get ready? Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you so much.
Um, So we hope this session has been beneficial and will help each of you in guiding your team towards excellence in the upcoming ICO Advocacy Competition 2025. With that, we officially conclude our program for tonight. One, Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Stop the recording.
I'll send the recording to you dekat Telegram nanti. Tapi how do I retrieve the recording?
Just stop the recording first.
Okay. Yeah.
Start.
Okay, that's